name's Chris.
I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
And it's so lovely to be back in the pavilion.
We're in the pavilion for the Great Canadian Baking Show.
And it's a rewatch.
It's a rewatch. Okay, so
It's so wonderful.
we've got a few things to explain to people. So, first of all, Australia, that is what we keep ranting about and raving about. The Great Canadian Baking Show. And look, everyone who's listened to this series before, and especially some of the bakers, are probably going, Chris, what's wrong? You're calling it the Great Canadian Baking Show? It's not going to last. I'm going to call it Bake Off because that's what it is. But that's not what they call it. So I'm being civil at the start before I go, screw you all, we're going back to Bake Off.
Yes.
Look, that was episode 1 of series 1.
And if you are new to joining us to watch Great Canadian Baking Show, this, I hope, is the same moment that you had, that you're having, that we had, which was, I watched the first one with Chris and I'm like, oh my God. And we just watched the second one and then the third one because we found it in another way.
In the ether.
And I'm like, we have to pod this. It is happiness wrapped up in chocolate and ganache.
It's joy.
And joyfulness.
This thing is amazing and we absolutely adore it. And we were talking about, we've been sort of pestering Foxtel a little bit.
Yes.
And pestering the makers of Canadian Bake Off.
Yes.
We've been pestering everyone for it. We spoke to one of the major producers of the show a couple of weeks ago on the pod, America Hardy, and we spoke to her. America Emery, sorry. We spoke to her on the pod, and she was fantastic and wonderful. And we were saying, show in Australia? She goes, we haven't heard anything. Foxtel suddenly go, we're going to show it.
Yes. Well, I did tweet them quite angry one night.
Yes, you did.
In the middle of the pandemic, like at the beginning of the pandemic, just going,
where's Canadian?
If you can't give us Great Australian Bake Off, you can at least get us Canadian Bake Off.
They listened.
And here we are.
F-list rowboat right there.
Yeah, that's the skill I have at tweeting. Next stop, Scott Morrison, that I'm going to sort America out.
That's not going to work. Anyway, so this is...
You underestimate my tweetiness. For
anyone who's listened to the MasterChef pods...
Yeah.
This is a very different atmosphere.
Oh, it absolutely
This is sweet. When we go sweetness and fucking light on MasterChef, this is genuinely sweetness and light.
Yeah.
We love this show and everybody in it. And I was getting messages from people all the way through that going, I've already got favourites. It's everyone.
Yeah.
And it genuinely is everyone. So to explain what is going to happen here and what the general gist of everything going on is.
Yeah.
We did podcast this early.
Yep.
But...
And you can go back and listen to that.
You can go back and re-listen to those episodes.
And then you can listen to this one.
But what we
in
did...
whichever order you want.
But what we did for the first series, though, was we bulk podcasted the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Because we got on a bit of a shotgun run and we weren't going to podcast, and then we just decided, as we said, we started watching it. We have to. So we did it. And we had to find it, I said, through other means. And we found it and watched it all and shotgunned it. And then we finished it the week that the second series came out.
It was so good.
It was brilliant. We found it. Like, it was almost a year after the fact.
Yeah.
We found it almost a year after the fact.
In perfect timing for series 2.
And all the bakers were like, what? You've just found this thing? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Cool. And in Australia, no less. Mm-hmm. And again, just a general backstory about Canadian. They're through now 3 seasons, and they're getting towards their 4th, and we're going to have a bit more of a talk about that coming up, not in this episode, but in a few episodes' time, and you're going to want to hear that chat. I'm just going to leave that bit of information there. You're going to want to hear the conversation we have about the upcoming series, but we'll leave that for now. So we've spoken to a bunch of people from the show.
Yeah.
This podcast run is going to have a lot of bakers. Right, I'm just going to tell you. Normally we go, I'm not going to say exactly who, but I'm just going to say to you, it's almost everyone.
Yep.
And we are really excited. If you go back and listen to some of the other episodes, you'll hear some of them. And we've had some of them on before. Some of them we haven't had on before, but there have always been plans. All of them have won
Virgies.
All of them have won Virgies. Every single one of them is a Virgie winner. Some of them have given great acceptance speeches. Some of them not as genuine as others. Now, Dana, I'm looking at you. There are a couple of other things I need to mention before we get into it.
Yeah.
First of all, Kristie mentioned we are back in the pavilion.
We are.
Okay, so we have descriptions that are different for each of the versions. So, For British,
it's the tent.
For Australian,
it's the shed.
And for Canadian,
it's the pavilion.
Right, and for Kiwi, we don't really bother about Kiwi.
It's the cabana.
But it was the cabana. Until we didn't get to the end of the series. I actually had someone, by the way, stop me yesterday and say, have you seen the Kiwi Bake Off? And I said, we didn't finish.
We couldn't
finish. But so in terms of when we talk about Canadian, it's the pavilion.
Even though they call it the tent.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, but it's got peaks and it just needs little flags on top.
And it's got peaks and it's also got a deck.
Yeah.
It's a pavilion.
Like, a tent doesn't have a deck. Pavilion will.
It looks more like it's like the part of, the Canadian Expo from when they had the Expo in the mid-'80s.
Do you have to, go on about Expo? Like, we know that's
not that one.
I don't care.
I'm talking about the one with the floating McDonald's.
Okay, all right.
Montreal had the one with the floating McDonald's. So.
I also think it's perfect for jousting, except it'd be uphill v downhill jousting with that massive hill.
It's a fascinating. It's a fascinating bit. It's a good structure.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty structure.
You could defend it. If there was a zombie apocalypse while Bake Off was filming there, they could defend that structure.
And again, it's on the grounds.
Who knows what's going to happen when COVID mutates?
Who knows? And it's on the grounds there at Toronto, at the National Film Centre at Toronto. And it's stunning grounds. It's just a beautiful setting
and
for
I love
for
seeing all the little cardinals.
I know. You and your bird spotting. There's a couple of things you're going to get from Kristie in this series. Yeah. Bird spotting will be one. Languages will be the other. We'll come to that. Wow, aren't we going to come to that? So there are going to be things that we are going to reference that were in the first run. There are going to be some new things happening. I had a couple of people, Leah in particular, tweeting out, I can't wait for the songs. This is a bit Broadway.
But we've got a first song to get through.
We do.
Because it is International Wear a Flower Crown Day. It is the 50th anniversary of International Wear a Flower Crown Day. Thus, we welcome regular listener and also Bake Off fanatic Gabrielle Cleary.
Hey, Gabby.
To her 50s. It's her birthday today, and happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gabby.
Oh, God.
Happy birthday to you.
I promise the rest of the singing is so much better than that. Let's get into who all of these people are.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to go through who everyone is. We'll run through them all. We've done this before, but we know them a lot better now,
yes,
and I'm so keen. So we start with Corey, who at the time was 31 and was a human rights lawyer. Corey is hilarious. Corey is a wonderful human being.
Corey's name rhymes with glory. Story.
He's from Toronto.
Allegory.
Montessori. I think we did this exact joke.
Yes.
So look, Corey is a wonderful human being.
Yep.
And again, hopefully one of the people we will get to have a chat to. Somebody where I can almost guarantee you we're going to have a chat to is my Patronus, James. The wonder that is James. James's bench is me. James is me. We've spoken to James a few times on the podcast. In the first series, we spoke to James. Then when we did the Christmas special,
yes,
we spoke to James again a second time. Mm-hmm. He is a physics professor from Richmond in British Columbia.
Yep, as often just shown by his experiments with gravity and cake batter.
Okay, Jude is a queen of whimsy.
Oh my God.
That is her profession.
Yes.
That is her life.
I don't even think she's the queen of. I think she just
is whimsy. She's whimsy. So Jude was an animator.
And didn't it show tonight when we go through her bakes?
When we talk about the gnomes. And she's from Victoria, British Columbia.
Yeah.
Julian is a contractor. Again, who knew?
Yes.
The block cake didn't give it away. Julian was also, when we did this watch through the first time, very popular with the ladies in the audience.
And some of the men.
Julian was very popular with everyone. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Linda's lovely.
Oh, she is everyone's grandma that you want to have.
She's from Alberta. Pierre. Oh my God, Pierre. He's just
the Renaissance man. And we only get one episode of him, and it is a travesty.
And we talked about this in the first run of the pod, and we're going to talk about it again tonight. Obviously, he promises us a song.
Yes.
and we never get the damn thing because he was going to do it in episode 2.
Yep, and since getting to know the Bakers from season 1, like, all we hear is we thought Pierre was going to win.
We thought he was going to go really deep, if not win the whole thing.
I need to know
so talented.
How he pissed off the baking gods. Like, that was just travesty after travesty.
He didn't sing.
Really into the travesty. Yeah, they wanted a song.
So here's
like, why didn't you bring your guitar this time, not next time?
So he was from Quebec, as is Sabrina.
Yes.
Graphic designer from Montreal.
Yes, Sabrina, the baking witch.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yes.
And we'll get to see more of her, obviously. Sinclair from London, Ontario.
Yes.
The optometrist who always looks like he's conducting some form of test, eye test. I love Sinclair. And that mirror glaze, and we'll talk about his mirror glaze in more depth. Oh, it was so awesome. And I just love how his intense passion whenever he's sort of,
doing something. Like, he's so focused and in the moment. Like, it'd be really full on if you're his kid, though, because, like, all of us are used to parents kind of taking a glancing interest in our life, and he would just be there with you present.
I know. Terry. Now, Terry is from Alberta, allegedly.
Yes. Here's the thing, folks. We have neither had this confirmed nor denied.
And we've spoken to her, and we've still yet to have it confirmed or denied.
Is she really Terry from Alberta, or is she Terry Irwin?
Yeah.
Like, this is, is Bindi and
Bob
in a... I think they're too big for the...
They said three. Again, they do say 3 girls, but we've always thought that was a cover.
Yes.
We've never been convinced anything otherwise.
Yeah,
and we're still not convinced all these years later. And you're about to get 2 in 1. So, the last baker.
Yes.
Vandana, Chris' favourite baker. Vandana, what's she baking today? Oh, Vandana. Vandana has her own theme song. But more than that, Vandana is from a great part of the world. 1, 2, 3, Regina! Experience Regina! Boo, 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 boo.
Now, like me, you probably had never heard that song before in your life and thought, there is something missing from my life. And when Chris showed me that YouTube clip, a part of me just came home to roost.
If you've never heard that song, just go to YouTube and type in Experience Regina. And enjoy.
Just enjoy.
It's delightful. I'm happy that every season there is a baker from Regina.
Yes, thank you, Jodie.
Because it gives me a chance every year to bust it out.
Yes.
So, but I mean, in this series, I said Vandana gets 2 themes.
Yes.
She's Experienced Regina and Vandana, Chris's favourite baker.
Yeah.
So, and, again, James is my protagonist, but I have no shame in saying Vandana's my favourite baker.
I just love everyone.
I love all of them, but Vandana was my favourite baker. So let's get into the episode, shall we? But to get into it, we need to talk about 4 individuals.
Yes.
So, our judges.
Mm-hmm.
So our judges are Rochelle. Now, Rochelle is a Canadian Australian. You will have heard that voice coming through and gone, that sounds familiar.
Yes, she is a Western Australian.
Yes, she is.
She has her own little shop of desertiveness.
Yes.
Over there.
Now, Rochelle is fantastic and awesome, obviously, but there is one person this is about.
Oh, and only about.
Bruno.
Oh.
Bruno is amazing.
Yes.
Right, that man is incredible, and you are going to, if you've never seen this before, you are going to love Bruno.
He is just a delight and everything a good judge should be, really.
He's supportive. Mm-hmm. He's supportive. He judges very fairly. He expects quality.
Yep.
Like, there's no dip on quality. He expects the best. He is really quietly hilarious.
Yes.
And you won't spot it, but he's
just moments. There are moments there's a moment through.
There are moments in this series they start to poke through. By the time you will get to series 3, and you will get to series 3, people. Yes. I'm just going to tell you that straight up. There are times when you get to series 3 where he's just out and out hilarious. Yeah. But
all I can say is, if you haven't fallen in love with Great Canadian Bake Off after watching this episode, you've got no soul and no heart, and quite frankly, I don't know if you're actually human. Just saying.
Fair enough. So we're gonna meet a lot more of Bruno as we go on, obviously. But Bruno is an amazing man.
But to our hosts,
So we'll start Julia. Now, Julia is
English.
She's English. She's awesome. She's wonderful. She does a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, she's the narrator.
Now, the reason she does a lot of heavy lifting is that her co-host is possibly the closest thing to whimsy not called Jude. Her co-host, one and only...
Dan Levy.
Mr. Dan Levy. Schitt's Creek himself.
Exactly. Son of Eugene Levy, who you might know as the dad from American Pie.
Yep.
And the dad from Schitt's Creek.
Yes.
So
Dan Levy is hilarious, and we saw a little bit of pure Dan tonight when he asked if he could lick up a bit of the leftovers. Now, that's the start. As we get through this series, he goes less subtle. And it gets to a point, I'm not even going to say which one of them it is, but one of the contestants starts basically baking...
Extra
for him.
Yep.
Because he's going to come over and steal their bake. So they're like, here, I made you some. So they actually start feeding him.
Yes.
It becomes like Gremlins. Feed him after midnight. Don't get him wet. Yeah. But again, they do what all good hosts of Bake Off do, which is they strike that balance between affection and
levity
and that humour. And like you saw it when they came over, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you for us to be here at the moment?
It was very perceptive. The levity comes from like a generosity towards the bakers and to create the kind of support and mood that they need at that time and building a relationship. And I feel that, possibly Dan Levy as well has got a little bit of an edge in that he's probably, national treasure Dan Levy. So people have kind of got a soft spot for him already, but he does do very well. And like Julia, who occasionally I'll probably call Emily or Emma, because that's what I do.
Yeah, she does rename people. What was it? You renamed Bruno to Rahul.
I did.
That was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to seeing what I rename him later. Who knows what will pop out? Maybe Adam. Maybe Tim.
That could be funny.
Yes. Who are you typing to?
I'm responding to people who are talking about how good the show was. Literally,
doing a podcast.
Thank you.
Just tell them.
It's wonderful. Okay.
To listen to the podcast.
Where I'm responding. Okay.
And then they'll know.
Hey, Degustation Destination, I'm responding to you. Anyway, so he was saying he wants some Battenberg now.
Yeah, that's great. Just say, make one. Like you can talk to him.
Make one. Okay, there we go. Done. Yeah. So let's get into the bakes. Because apparently I'm not allowed to respond to the public. So
I'm doing to a podcast.
I was talking. I was doing everything at once. I'm a Renaissance man like Pierre.
You're a something man.
I'm a Renaissance man like Pierre.
Sure, we'll get you that on a t-shirt.
Dominic.
You learn to play the guitar, then we'll talk.
Done. Right. Anyway, you asked for that, Stan. But anyway, shit. Your call. So the signature was 2 hours to make cupcakes. Now it's interesting because we've all talked about this, and there was a bit of commentary tonight online about it, and Austenite talked about it, and Robert agreed with her, and we've talked about this before. We're not the largest fans in the world of cupcakes.
No, they got their place.
I think that
it's usually at a kid's birthday party.
But I think that cupcakes were a great introduction.
Absolutely.
Because it gives, because of the fact that you're making the cupcakes, it actually gives a better chance, I think, to introduce us to the bakers.
And also give enough scope for people to do, how can I put it, to zhuzh it up.
Personality.
And to show some skill without,
You can show some skill, but you also get to do a bit more personality because people tend to give a bit more personality to cupcakes.
To cupcakes, yeah.
And you get to see a lot. And what I really appreciated is we opened as we meant to go on with a few things in this series. And one of the first things that you'll notice in these cupcakes is booze.
First bench we meet, go to is Jane's And what's the first
Well,
thing he does?
we start with Corey.
Oh, we start with Corey.
Because Corey had the first lot of booze, and James is behind him and goes, "Oh, look, you've got booze. So do I."
No. I remember this because the first shot of James is him cracking open the tinny and having a swig and just, getting into it.
Okay, so Corey does a chocolate beer and maple whiskey cupcakes. I haven't had any, I promise. And again, that booze is going to be something we are going to see a lot of.
These people have boned up on their bake-off. Is that going to transition to Canadian, do you think? Boning up?
It is now. So, all right, James did the ginger stout. Mm-hmm. And again, it's good fun to watch, and everyone started to get a bit of a snapshot of who James is by watching that bench. Now, again, that bench would change by the time we get to the showstopper, and let's face it, our showstopper conversation is largely going to be breaking down James's bench. Jude. Now, okay, Jude raises a very important running conversation in the history of this podcast. Her first one was the breakfast banana maple. Okay, fine, fair enough.
Great.
Jude then serves up Saskatoon berry cupcakes.
Now, Saskatoon berries
are fake.
We have been duped by them. We have been jailed because of them.
We were jailed. If you go back and listen at the end of this to the Canadian Virgies, we were locked up in prison in Regina, Saskatchewan,
and only rescued by our now departed and
Leo,
loved Leo,
who was our correspondent at those Virgies. Thank you, Leo. R.I.P.
Yes.
But.
He's humping a tarpaulin.
The Saskatoon berry you are going to see a lot of. I'm not convinced. I remain unconvinced. I have had many bakers over many series of Canadian try to prove to me that they are real. Jude is still trying to prove to me that they are real. We might have had a conversation on the weekend where Jude was trying to prove to me they are real.
Now, Mr. Buchanan, I didn't tell you this today because I was saving it for the podcast. A correspondent of ours in Canada, maybe a baker from the most recent season, is sending over some freeze-dried Saskatoon berries. So we can actually sort this shit out ourselves.
And we can tell you they're blueberries. They're blueberries dipped in raspberry juice. I think we came up with blueberries and raspberry conserve.
Now, I feel that she is a credible source, considering her ancestors...
And she was picking them.
No. Her ancestors, are caretakers of the land over in Canada. So it's possible that Jody has got a Saskatoon berries. I'm not sure if they're actually just
I'm not convinced that Jodie's not in the pocket of big Saskatoon berries.
You think she's trading in on this?
100%. She's in the pocket of big Sasky.
Much like Australians go, oh yeah, you come to the airport and a kangaroo picks you up and you hop away and
you get attacked by a drop bear.
Yeah, Canadians are like, no, have these Saskatoon berries. They're only twice the price of blueberries.
Look,
half the quantity.
We might once have advertised Saskatoon berries.
Much to our...
We paid for that. Literally, we paid for that.
We need to move on to happier things because
we do.
That was just painful.
And when we're talking about happier things, we need to talk about Julian and his chocolate cream liqueur cupcakes.
Again, booze. These people have boned up on their bakes and it's fantastic and we're here for it.
So, and then we get...
And something I noticed about Julian's cupcakes, there's a little bit of birch paper around the side. I thought that was a nice touch.
So, and then we
get some leftover wallpaper into putting up on the weekend.
didn't go up there. And he did birch syrup as well, which was interesting. I thought that was a fascinating... I think we missed that in the first run because we were too busy worrying about the Saskatoon berries.
Yeah.
But birch syrup cupcakes, it's a fascinating thing. Mm-hmm. Linda.
Yes.
Now, lemon, classic, and then the Nanaimo bars. So we had to look those up in the first run. Mm-hmm. And sort of what we worked out, it's 3 layers. So it's a wafer, then there's nuts, and then there's a coconut crumb base. There's custard icing in the middle and a layer of chocolate ganache on top. So it's a little bit like, if you were doing...
Picnic?
No, it's a slice. It's a homemade. It's a slice.
Okay.
It's a slice.
It's a slice.
Right. So It's basically a slice. It's like something you would buy at one of those sort of, you're at a bake sale. You're at a bake sale and one of the kids comes up to you and goes, would you like to buy this slice? I made it myself.
I'll take that and 3 of your toffees because that's how I roll.
Well, you would just take 3 of their toffees, in all honesty.
I feel sorry for them. I'd buy one of those bars
You wouldn't do it because you feel sorry for them. You'd see toffee and go, I'll have that. Pierre, look. I thought Pierre did it like chocolate raspberry and then the white chocolate pistachio. They were 2 really good flavours. I really liked his idea. A lot of pistachio in this episode too. Now Sabrina.
Surprised they haven't started to call them Alberta nuts.
So Sabrina did tiramisu in the first ones, which was interesting. And then she also did cookies and cream. The cookies and cream ones I thought were funny because when Rochelle did the judging, she goes, well, I can tell they're cookies and cream. And I'm like, what gave it away? The giant Oreo? What was it? I don't quite know what it was. Sinclair, again, whiskey cream and his mojito and lime.
With the extra little shot.
I love the little shot that he put in there. That's absolutely brilliant. By the way, in the history of Canadian, not the last time we're going to see mojito.
No.
We're going to see it again.
It's very popular.
Now, Terry, I loved the little cotton candy that she did on top of those cotton candy cupcakes. Mm-hmm. They were really awesome.
I'm not convinced about the flavour, though. I didn't see what she used to flavour them. I presume it's a
joy.
A joy. She used joy to flavour.
Terry used joy, all right? and then she did the carrot cake cupcakes, which is very motherly.
It is. And it's something that, it's natural. It's something that perhaps, I don't know, animals eat.
Yep, exactly. It's something that would be safe if, say, I don't know, a crocodile got hold of it.
Yeah, or maybe a koala or a kangaroo.
Or something else they keep at Australia Zoo.
A wallaby.
Anything else at Australia Zoo could... One of the peacocks wandering around could quite happily munch away on a carrot cake.
Yeah, without getting ill.
So, again, the case... Terry, you've still not proved it. The case continues.
And I believe carrot cake, it was Bindi Irwin's wedding cake. I believe.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The pieces, they fit.
Well, that's what I heard from insiders and fellow diners.
Insiders and fellow diners?
During this COVID wedding.
Let's get to my favourite baker. Yeah. So Vandana did the chocolate rose and the coconut key lime. What I love, by the way, can I just say, is that the number of people we had who were tweeting along tonight who are bake-off lovers who immediately just went, oh my God, she's using rose.
Uh-huh.
Everyone got into a mad panic with the idea of using rose.
Well, it is controversial, possibly soapy, possibly eating, what's that stuff called? The little flowers, dried flowers, in a bowl that people mistake for eating.
Potpourri.
Potpourri, that's it.
It's a little potpourri for the liking.
Yeah.
And then the coconut key lime cupcakes. You put the lime in the coconut and stir it all up. So I thought, look, as a challenge, we've talked about the idea of the introducing the bakers through cupcakes. I thought it was a really good introduction. And what made it an even better introduction is, look, the judging was all pretty good. It was all pretty straightforward. But what we need to mention is, so Jude had the breakfast banana maple. So we talked about Saskatoon berry. Now, Jude, who we love, who we adore, one of the reasons why she is whimsy, she has a bit of an issue at times with everything being in the bake.
Yeah. Sometimes it's around the bake. It was intended for the bake.
It could be on the bench.
Could be still at the store. Could be still in the tree. The maple could still be in the tree.
Gord could have it.
Yes.
In fact, Gord could definitely have it. I wonder if Gord does. I might have to ask Jude if Gord, her partner, has it. But...
could have been stolen by a gnome.
Breakfast banana maple. Okay, so there's 2 ingredients there listed in the title.
Breakfast and banana.
Well, yes, basically, because what wasn't there? Maple. So, I loved the way that Rochelle's like, I'm struggling to find the maple. And they're like, Jude's like, I forgot it. And then the same thing happened later on when we get to the Battenberg. I'm struggling to find the jam. And Jude later on was like, I forgot it. Oh, I love you, Jude. You're so awesome. She's genuinely awesome. So after the signature, look, everyone was kind of on a bit of an even footing. There was no absolute disasters.
No.
And that's what you want. You want them coming out of the gate, like 100 mile an hour, ready for this. So we get to the second challenge, which was the technical. Now, again, if you are used to MasterChef, there's a thing called blind judging.
Yeah.
Bake Off does it in the technical.
Yeah, well, they basically tell the judges to fuck off.
Yep.
So people can all have a crack at this one bake that will... Okay, here's the thing with Canadian Bake Off you'll need to know. With the technical, so usually like an Australian and British, they'll give basically the outline of a bake. They might say something like, make a ganache, make a sponge, blah, blah, blah. Most
of the time early on they give a lot of instruction.
Yes.
And then they might leave one or two things out.
Exactly. In Canadian, they go hard. Like
in Canadian, at one point, I can't remember. I think there is one in this season. I know it in later seasons, but I think there's even one in this season where the instructions for the technical are like 3 lines.
Yep.
It's literally make this, assemble. That's it. That's it. There's no method. There's no temperature. There's no cooking time. There's a couple of them where they go, I've never heard of this before, and there's nothing.
Yep.
There is absolutely nothing to run with it. The Battenberg Cake, which they had to make for the technical, was brilliant because they didn't tell them about cutting the ends off. They didn't specify the way it needed to be organised in the checkerboard pattern, as Terry found out. It's a really interesting one. Now, I think it was Leah pointed out that the Battenberg was used in an Australian Bake Off Grand Final.
Yes, it was.
It's the first challenge, first technical of Canadian. Right? This gives you an idea of the level they're pitching. They're pitching at a fairly high level here.
Yeah.
So they gave them the marzipan, the fondant, and the jam. So they didn't have to make that.
No.
Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, the jam, sponsorship. Look, the better part is it's more subtle than it is on Kiwi, where Dole Pineapple basically propped up the cabana. And they actually, at one point in Kiwi, and I'm not joking about this, those of you who didn't see it, they were dicing fresh pineapple with a bag of Dole Pineapple in front of it.
Yep.
Actually happened, real thing.
Yes.
They wanted to use fresh, but they had to put a packet in front of it to go, look, but Dole Pineapple.
Has pineapple.
But in terms of with the Battenberg, with the way they're sponsored, it's far more subtle than that. It's also far more subtle than Devondale.
Yeah.
Hashtag you ought to be congratulated. But I actually really liked the fact they gave them the marzipan and the fondant, because what they wanted to see was the technique in being able to assemble this and understand what it was.
And it actually underpins what this whole week is. It's cake week. It's not jam week, it's not marzipan week, it's not icing week. Not fondant week.
Definitely not fondant week.
Yes, we're not fond of fondant week. It's never been around. It was cake week, and that's how they judged it. They said, okay, this is missing, that's missing, but cake's good. So, yeah.
The quality of the cake is what you needed. So, in this challenge, we had a couple of interesting... They had an hour 45 to do this, but they were very vague. They didn't give them complete cooking times. They didn't really give them...
Cooling times.
Yeah, they didn't give them any of those sorts of things. They didn't give them the assembly clues. It just said, assemble.
Battenberg, assemble.
Battenberg, assemble. Now, Terry did a bunch of layers. I like James. James was like, I've eaten a lot of Battenbergs. I've never made one.
I think she misunderstood it first.
Yeah.
The cross-cutting. So it's down the middle, through the middle.
And then when she cuts it, and it's just like layer with the different colours, and she's like, oh, now I understand. Maybe if I flip it over.
Smart work.
And it sort of worked, vaguely. So she did a lot of layers, and hers was a bit of an issue there in terms of the layers, but they said the flavour was good.
Yes.
Jude, as we mentioned, it looked good.
Yep.
But it wasn't stuck together, and they're like, I think there's a bit of an issue with the jam here, and you can just see Jude going, no.
Yep. There's no issue.
The issue is it's over there.
Jam.
It's over there. It's in the jar on the bench. Okay. I was plugging.
Do you think Jude... I presume they had to stay at a hotel because, like Australia, Canada is quite large, and unlike Britain where you can just duck home for
a weekend, yeah.
I presume she's gone, I got nothing to put on my toast in the morning. You know what would come in handy? some jam.
What?
Pop that in the handbag.
She thought it was part of the Good Morning basket.
Yeah.
Like there's the coffee and the tea and
the
there
jam
was no
and
jam,
maple.
and she just thought the jam and maple were part of it, so she took it back.
Yep.
She's like, I need breakfast tomorrow morning. I need jam and maple. Okay, done.
Yeah, exactly.
That might be it. We might have to find it.
Crumpets are now jammed and maple.
We might have to ask Jude that one. So, poor Pierre.
Oh dear.
The marzipan.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was just a little
Thick.
I was going to try to say robust.
I feel that Julian turned around and possibly said to Pierre after seeing that marzipan, you want a job in bricklaying because that is perfect mortar thickness.
It was absolutely fantastic. I also loved Corey, because Corey, they were all making the Battenberg and they're all assembling their Battenberg and putting them all in lines. And then they put the marzipan on top. They did the roll and did all the assembly. And then there was this moment where everyone in the technical is looking around the pavilion at everyone else. And some of them have cut the ends off and some of them haven't. And you had to make a decision. And what I loved about what Corey did was Corey used Into the Woods as his mantra. And the reason I say this is, it's the song on the steps of the palace, where the baker's wife says, and in that moment you know what your decision is. You know not to decide.
Yes.
She sings, you just leave him a clue. For example, a shoe. In this case, you just leave them a clue. For example, you cut one end off your cake and leave the other one covered. And you hedge your bets.
Yep.
And I loved it because they're like, this one here can't work out what it's doing.
It is Schrodinger's Battenberg. It is both.
It is everything and nothing. It was everything and nothing all at once. And Sinclair's looked like somebody had run it over.
Oh.
Everything that could have happened to Sinclair's kind of did happen to Sinclair.
It was a Battenberg.
It was a Battenberg cake, you are right.
Yes.
So, in terms of the first technical, Sinclair was 10th, and look, that was understandable.
Actually, he was 9th.
No, he was 10th.
Was he?
Yes, he was.
Oh my god!
Pierre was 9th because his collapsed.
That's right.
His was flattened and collapsed and fell apart.
That's right. Oh,
Pierre was 9th.
that's right. Yes.
Julian was 8th. Mm-hmm. Terry was 7th.
Yep.
And by the way, when you're going, Terry was 7th, but wasn't she Star Baker? You'll learn very quickly in Canadian. The technical very rarely matters.
In most bake-offs, the technical very
Sabrina
rarely
was
matters.
6th. James was 5th. Go, James. 4th was Jude. Without the jam, it must be said. She still came 4th, which gives you an idea of how good the cake must have been.
Because Linda got 3rd, didn't she?
So the 3rd was Linda. 2nd was Corey. And Vandana, Chris's favourite baker, wins the first technical.
And she was quite shocked.
She was stunned.
I could go home and sleep well tonight.
Indeed, and she turned up the next day ready to perform.
Oh, yeah.
So we get to the third challenge they had, and what we love as well is we talk a lot with the MasterChef podcast about the fact that don't like the fact that they're usually given maybe an hour or an hour and a half. They got 4 hours for this last challenge.
Now, something I noticed, and I'm sure it doesn't happen in Australian or British because I presume they're doing the heads, like the talking heads. But the hosts and the judges were wearing different clothes. Now, the bakers were wearing the same clothes.
Yeah.
But Rochelle had changed out of her green dress. Julia, I was about to call her Emma.
Almost call her Emma.
Had changed. Dan had decided to wear white. Surely he...
And, well, see, this is the thing. He had not been introduced to the man, the myth, the legend that is Hurricane James.
Is James Nadeau.
Yeah, he'd never been part of a James Nadeau. And it's an experience. And you can't explain the James Nadeau per se. You've got to see it for yourself. Yeah. So, yeah, no, you're right, though. They had changed. So, obviously, that's something that they weren't particularly fussed about at this point in time.
Yeah.
So they had to do a chocolate layer cake. They had 4 hours. They had to do 2 layers minimum. And they had to use at least 2 different types of chocolate.
Yep.
Some people went all out and used maybe 4 types of chocolate.
Because why not?
Because why not? Exactly. Why not indeed? Yeah. So Corey did the milk and cookies cake, and some of the designs in this challenge were sensational. Mm-hmm. So Corey's visual.
Yeah, with a milk carton.
The milk carton and the pouring, and you've got to also remember when this was done, right?
So shortly after Nadia's season, wasn't it? With her... Yeah,
but you've got to remember, first of all, you've got to remember for that. But secondly, you've got to remember because it wasn't as common.
No.
A lot of the stuff that we would have seen tonight, you're going, oh, I've seen that done. Well, this was filmed a while ago, right? This is filmed a while ago.
About 4 years ago.
Yeah, so we're looking at, hang on a minute, 2017 it is. Yeah.
Ooh,
2017 this was filmed.
2017, 2018, 2019.
Yeah, we're at 4.
So 4 years.
4 years. So... a lot has happened. Now, what I haven't seen a lot of...
like a world pandemic.
What I haven't seen a lot of, though...
Yeah.
Why have I not seen anyone try to replicate James's chocolate record player? That is a masterpiece. I will not hear a word against my Patronus. This man is me in a kitchen.
Yep.
I loved at one point, it always...
I really feel your attempt at a watermelon and that record player would have really sat well together in the display.
We really would have. The day I tried to make the watermelon cake, to be fair...
No,
the oven broke.
Even with the oven breaking, your decorations... You tried.
We're both about flavour. James and myself are both... You don't understand us. We are about flavour.
No, I don't. Obviously have no idea. No concept.
We are about flavour.
Yeah.
Pure flavour.
Yeah.
We don't need it to look perfect.
Yeah, an artistic expression.
My artistic expression is through the taste bud.
Okay.
Much like James's artistic expression, also through the taste bud.
Yes.
Because
the finesse
might not have been in the chocolate record. Look,
so much there.
Look, I love you, man, but... I can't even defend the record player. But the flavours of the cake were apparently brilliant.
Yes.
And everything we've ever heard about James's food is it's not brilliant to look at, but my God, it eats well.
In this challenge, I can remember this is what cemented my love of Jude. Like, just the little gnomes.
Oh, the gnomes. All right, let's talk about the gnomes.
Yes. So not only did she make these... And she's an animator, and as we saw in her kind of vox pop, like, back home... What do they call it? I don't know. But the flashes back, montage back home. Back home? There we are.
Anyway.
She has a little studio and she set up her cake slice that had like little characters on it, and it was taking a cool little photo. And then we see these 3 gorgeous little garden gnome characters with pumpkins on it. And this is shortly after she'd talked about how she had to introduce all the ingredients to each other.
They have to talk to each other? You have to introduce them?
We've heard about listening to your bakes, but have you ever introduced yourself to the bakes?
You've got to introduce the flour to the milk and to the eggs, and you've got to introduce all these ingredients to each other. And Jude does have in-depth conversations all the way through her baking. And it's lovely.
And the way she just put her hands behind her head.
That is the moment. The moment that I really just fell in love with Jude was the moment where she was explaining the lazy gnome. Yeah. And she puts her hands, here's my dad just kicking back, relaxing like this, puts her hands behind her head, and you're like, you are amazing.
Yeah.
You are absolutely amazing. Never be any different.
No, she's just pure awesomeness. So her bake not only looked gorgeous, but it tasted good.
The chocolate ginger gnome cake.
Yes.
It pure joy.
Yeah.
Absolute pure joy. I think it was at that point that I had a bunch of people just message me to go, Jude is wonderful.
Yes.
She's so cool.
And I think it looked like she used modelling chocolate for it. Maybe Robert Harwood can let us know.
Exactly.
Or Jude herself.
Now, Julian.
Yes.
What I really, and we've talked about this before, but what I love about Julian's builder's cake.
Yeah.
Right. The intricacy, it looks at first like you're going to be impressed by the intricacy of the tools because he's doing all the model and you're like, oh, they're going to look really cool.
Yeah.
The thing that always sticks with me with that builder's cake is the way he did the cement finish.
Oh, it looked fantastic. Just the roughness.
Yeah, because that was
the imperfections, the pock marks.
Rochelle said. She goes, it's not smooth.
No.
Because it's not supposed to be.
No.
It's supposed to look like a cement finished block.
Now, what I love too is there was a foreboding there, a foretelling of a man that would come to Great Australian Bake Off a couple of years later in the use of copper dust on Julian Shard. And for those who were there for the grand final for Dan with his baking, and you came away coated in dust. Copper dust.
Coated in copper dust. It was everywhere. But Julian's builder's cake, like, again, it's... If you had told me, without watching the show, if you had said one of the bakers is going to make a cube, I would have gone, oh, okay, that's not going to be impressive.
They do.
It was ridiculous levels of impressive. The way that there was that chunk out of it as well, which was so well crafted. The finish on it, which we said, which was so perfect. That shard sticking out of the top of it, which you had to pick back up once because it fell.
Yeah.
But just the way, like, the tools ended up being completely secondary to everything else on that design.
Absolutely. And, you know, we saw a couple, like, we mentioned Corey's design, but then we look at Sabrina's design with the, you know, we've seen the dropped ice cream, but it wasn't popular back then.
No, it hadn't been overboard. No. And the way that she did that ice cream cone cake was really cool. Yeah. And I loved her, like, she's like, I'm going to put the dowel in this now because this damn thing's going to stand up.
No, and even though it had a little bit of a tilt, it still looked lovely.
But it had a little bit of a tilt. But the creativity of what Sabrina did and the look that Sabrina gave that cake, I've seen the melted ice cream cakes done before, and they're not always impressive. And even though it had a tilt to it, it was highly impressive what she did.
Oh, just a memory, right, of something I noticed tonight that I didn't notice the first season. Yep. Jude did a time step in her little dance. I saw a little time step go on.
I mean, that dance I've seen a million times because it's legendary. Yes. There's a GIF. There is definitely a GIF out there.
Sure, I saw it.
Jude's little dance is wonderful.
Yes, just a little time step there.
Now, Linda's design didn't quite work, and we talked. And I think Brandon talked about the idea because we talked about collars on cakes and things like that. Linda tried one, and so did Terry. Terry's worked. Linda's didn't.
And she did the mirror glaze as well, which just didn't quite set. It just ran off the mousse.
So there are a couple of things that you need to remember about
this doesn't like mirrors.
So first of all, we did see
squirrels.
In this challenge the first lot of help where we had, you know, people coming over and helping each other in this challenge. And again, it was like instant. First episode is like, need a hand over there, how can I help you out? How can I pick that cake up? What do you need? Secondly, what you needed to pay attention to with the judging in that one was they looked at Linda's and they were like, look, there's clearly issues here. But what you needed to listen to, the judges both said the same thing. That cake is amazing.
Yep, tastes good.
The flavour that Linda managed to have there was incredible. Right? That's something to just remember as the series goes on, because one of the hallmarks that Linda is going to show you in this series is just flavour.
Yeah,
you can tell this is somebody who bakes for her family a lot.
Yes,
and has very fussy grandkids.
And Sabrina, like with her, like, you know, very Victorian-looking chocolate cake with the Vandana. Oh, that's right. Sabrina
Kristie's favourite baker.
Yeah. Yes, Sabrina did the ice cream cake. That's right. Vandana did
the hazelnut cake.
The hazelnut cake with, like, looking very Victorian with the berries around it, and it wasn't perfect. It was a little dry, but still gorgeous to look at.
Again, Vandana's design and the way that Vandana, like, the thing that, when we do the Kris's favourite baker thing, the reason was, like, the way that she just puts these bakes together and you're watching them come together and you can see it form. You can just see it all the way through this process, and she has so much fun with it. Yeah. Like, they all have so much fun with it, but I just loved watching her assemble these cakes and put these cakes together. Now,
coming to Terry. Oh, sorry, what were we going to...
Terry is where I was going. So her chocolate, raspberry and pistachio layer cake.
Yep, and this is where I liked Terry's choosing to assemble it inside the fridge.
Yes.
So her flavour profile, I think, is, you know, classic, but I'm like Bruno. I'm like, you put chocolate and raspberries in front of me and I'm there for it.
You're fine.
And because she was using a lot of chocolate, like the little butterflies that she was making, I adored the butterflies, but I thought it was funny when she's gone, there's one last element that terrifies me, and that shows a picture of her cake with butterflies, and I'm like, butterflies? Butterflies terrify Terry?
But I mean, it was also the collar.
One thing you'll never find at Australia Zoo.
There's no... she doesn't go... You know how they
cuddle a crocodile... Fuck the butterflies.
You know how you've got those places that have, like, the big butterfly enclosures and stuff like that? Terry's like, never at Australia Zoo.
That would be my heaven. I've always wanted to go into a butterfly
I've been to one. I'll have to... Well, post-COVID, I'll take you one.
Excellent.
We're done. And I loved what Terry did with hers. We need to now talk, unfortunately.
Oh.
First of all, I am a sucker for, again, what Pierre was making. What Pierre was making. No, we had it was the mousse, it's the Elisa sponge.
Yeah.
So the Elisa cake, which is the just Jacon frame around the outside with the mousse in the middle. Mousse and squirrel.
And squirrel in the bottom.
And unfortunately, and what I love about Pierre is he does all this and like he gets it already and gets it out and goes, no, that hasn't set yet. And like it's just like, so, oh well. And then
so lovely.
They finish the challenge and after they announce, and that's it, you're done, you cut back, and then Pierre just looks at the camera and goes, it fell apart. And you see the side of the cake fell out.
Yeah.
And he takes it up for the judging and he's like, oh well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And like it was really, I felt so bad. We have long lobbied that they needed to have a fake first baker.
And I feel like we may have got it in British this year by doing the baker's dozen.
Yeah. But Pierre is your argument why.
Yeah.
All right, because you watch poor Pierre and you're like, oh, dude. And apparently, from everything I've heard, a lot of the sort of the patisserie stuff later on and the pastries and stuff like that, he's bringing it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, it's like when you get that person who always goes, cake week, goes, I'm not very good at cake. And you're like, oh, this isn't going to go very well.
No.
But, like, I love the fact that Pierre was so, first of all, he was so upbeat.
Yeah.
He was so wonderful. Again, he owes us a song. He promised us a song. But also...
And Dan Levy.
That one...
You promised national treasure
Dan Levy a song. But also, what I love about Pierre was he was there for 1 week and he's like, I'm going to carry the spirit of this place with me always. Yeah. This is wonderful. I've never had an experience like this.
And this
was 1 week in.
This is an establishing episode.
Series. Like this is not the series where this show's been running for a while and you're carrying on the proud tradition.
Yeah.
This is an establishment of a series.
You know, and the way the hosts and the bakers just all slotted in well.
Yep, and the judges, and again Bruno, like you can tell that it's Bruno's pavilion.
Yeah,
it's Bruno's world.
And we're at a point where people don't know much about the judges' preferences and stuff, so we really don't have a lot of the gold leaf.
There's not a lot of gold leaf and pastel, which will come.
Yeah.
By the way, guess which judge likes those? I'm not going to say which. You can work it out for yourselves. But no, we don't... It's also, again, beneficial. They don't know their preferences.
No.
And so because they don't know the preferences, they've just got to be good. And that is how Canadian episode 1 went down. It is a lovely show. It is, I think, the show we've all needed that we didn't know we needed. Like, even us who have seen this.
No, I can remember distinctly a friend of mine, Valerie, who's an expat Canadian, recommended it a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh, Canadian? First of all, I was just getting my head around the fact that we were podcasting Australia and Australian bakers were talking to us. And I'm kind of like, oh, my God. So when the opportunity came and, you know, things had settled down and we'd actually watched it, I'm like, I really should have listened earlier.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want to, again, stress before we finish is the Canadian bakers are just as nice as they appear to be on TV and so generous.
Feel free to reach out to them on Twitter. A lot of them are active on social media.
If they're active on Twitter or Instagram, follow them, reach out.
If you don't mind spoilers, if you're trying to...
If you're trying to avoid spoilers, then don't.
Don't.
But if you don't mind if it's spoiled or not, reach out and follow some of their Instagrams. They do amazing food. They do amazing. There's amazing baking going on, and they're just amazing humans.
And apparently, they go out foraging for Saskatoon berries.
I don't believe them.
Neither do I.
I don't believe them. It's a lie.
Yeah.
You're going to have to convince me otherwise, guys. I know you're trying, but you're going to have to convince me.
Yeah.
That is the episode for this week.
It is.
So we will be back next week with a brand new old episode of Great Canadian Bake Off.
The rewatch.
The rewatch. Until then, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we'll catch you all later.
And that's what it was all about.